That day, if our positions were switched, would our fates be different? Would I have your life and you mine? Let's settle this. Dante.
Yeah, that was the coolest intro I've ever made. But come on, it's for the guy who wasn't in Devil May Cry 2, the plastic chair connoisseur, and the guy who stops you from watching furry porn. Nathan. It's literally Virgil himself. And today I'm going to try my best to give you a guide on how to play Virgil. But I mean, there's no guide to Virgil though. You just play him just so you can watch cool stuff happen. It is what it is. Like, look at this clip.
Get lost. Go to hell.
That's so cool! And to get started with it, I'm just going to be talking about his main weapon, the Yamato, which is canonically sharp enough to cut through space and time itself. God, that shit's edgy. The Yamato's combos can knock enemies back whilst dealing out a high amount of DPS to them, which is damage per second for the, non-gamers in the house. After most enemies have been knocked back, they are staggered for a decent amount of time, allowing you to move towards them using a dash attack or just teleport to them. We'll get into that later. The B or pause combo allows you to fling the enemies back further, whilst automatically firing a small blade into them, exploding after a second, which is incredibly handy to start an air combo with. The C combo allows you to rapidly slash an enemy, whilst holding them in place. When you stop mashing the attack button, Virgil will perform a much larger slash, firing any enemy away that it hits. This move is actually pretty good for crowd control, as the demons tend to pile up as you are stationary attacking the one or two guys. The pause effect this move has when slashing is also incredibly useful, and this pause effect is seen in another move called the Void Slash. The Void Slash slices at all enemies in front of you, holding them in place until you sheath the Yamato, after which brings them closer towards you, staggering them in the process, allowing you to perform a follow-up attack. However, none of these moves compare to the iconic Judgment Cut. The Judgment Cut is activated after holding down and letting go of the attack button, which then attacks either the closest enemy or the one you're locked onto. You can then perform up to 3 extra perfect Judgment Cuts, which deal triple the amount of damage compared to a regular Judgment Cut, and this move is literally the best goddamn move in the game. It's better than Dante's Royal Guard, it's better than whatever Nero has, and no point in mentioning V. It's literally, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Virgil main, I'm saying it because it's like, it's obnoxious, it's overpowered. I don't think it was possible to something to be overpowered in a hack and slash game, yet here we are. This shit is just too cool. It's so cool that Persona 5 tried to copy the Judgment Cut. I know, crazy. You can perform these perfect Judgment Cuts after any time you sheath the Yamato, allowing for a quick way to continue combos. However, the timing is rather difficult to get. You'll need to practice using the cuts in order to consistently use them, but you want to play Virgil, you don't want to use skill. So let's talk about his next weapon. The Mirage Edge. Yeah, you're not going to use the Mirage Edge. The Mirage Edge does around the same amount of damage as the Yamato, however it attacks slower and only has 2 combos. Finishing these combos does knock most enemies down, however I think the Mirage Edge shines in its non-combo attacks, specifically the Stinger and Drive. Stinger thrusts Virgil forward a good distance unless he hits a demon, which instead causes Virgil to hit the demon with the edge, causing them to fly backwards. Alternatively, you can hold down the attack button while performing a Stinger to perform the million stabs, where Virgil stabs the enemy every time you press the attack button, which holds the enemy in place, then knocks them back. Stinger can also be used in the air, so you can hit airborne enemies with it, as well as being able to use it as a movement tool to get behind enemies or dodge some attacks. Stinger is very good for dealing with 1 or 2 demons at a time, which can be good for dealing with a few stronger enemies, meaning unfortunately, it lacks in crowd control. This is where Drive comes in. Drive fires 2 large mid-range beams in front of you, which launches enemies up in the air. After performing a drive, you can then use Overdrive, which fires a slow beam in front of you, and the damage is dependent on how long you charge it for. Due to the hitbox of the drive projectiles being so large, you can launch a good amount of enemies up and then either catch them with the overdrive beam or start an air combo with the Yamato. Personally, I use the Mirage Edge just to perform out these moves, judging that the combos themselves aren't really that great, and because the moves I just went over do deal high amounts of damage and can be used to open up combos with other weapons. You can either use some fast hitting combos with the Yamato, which can also be used in the air, or you can swap to the Beowulf to do some heavy damage whilst the enemies are unable to react. The Beowulf is a slow, hard-hitting weapon that can shatter enemy armor and their guards pretty effectively. It also has 2 pretty decent combos, with the first one being a basic combo where you just do 2 punches and then kick the enemy, knocking them back. Or you could perform the pause combo where you're able to do a flurry of kicks doing a high amount of DPS, and also knocking the enemy back slightly further, I believe, if memory serves me correct. The Beowulf can also be used to parry incredibly effectively, as just when you jump you deal damage, so it is incredibly useful dealing with those red bastards. No one likes the red bastards, but being able to parry this easily is another reason why Virgil is kind of just, well, brain dead to play, because with Dante you actually have to time it right. With Virgil you just kind of jump and you can either get a perfect parry or just a half decent parry, you know, life's good. The Beowulf can do 2 attacks in the air, one where Virgil just smashes into the ground. You can also perform the Lunar phase where you spin in a circle and then kick enemies down into the ground. You can perform this attack on the ground, but I prefer using it in the air as you can cancel it, I believe, so you can just combo it back up with the Yamato. Now, one of my favourite attacks is possibly one of the best for the Beowulf. I know it's definitely not the best, but it's called Kick 13, and now, well, you just kick the enemy around 13 times. It's really cool. You can perform a fast flurry of hard-hitting kicks to deal good amounts of damage to the enemy, or you can hold down the attack button and then launch yourself up with the enemy. And obviously, more ways to do air combos is always good when you're playing Virgil, so... Now you can also use Beast Uppercut to punch an enemy into the air to, you know, perform air combos and such, or you can charge it up in order to perform either the Rising Dragon or the Dragon Breaker, depending on your concentration level. I'll get into that later. Now you can actually charge up most of the Beowulf's attacks to deal further damage and to just knock the enemies back even further. However, when I'm charging up attacks, I like to bring the Mirage Blades into the equation. The Mirage Blades are Virgil's ranged attack. Now they do a light amount of damage, however the fire rate is purely dependent on how fast you can press the button. You can also perform some special attacks with the Mirage Blade at the expense of some Devil Trigger bars. You can either charge up and fire 8 larger Mirage Blades, which can pierce armor incredibly effectively. You can also hold down the ranged attack button to surround yourself with the Mirage Blades, dealing damage to enemies that get close to you, and then you can hold down the attack button again to fire the Mirage Blades away from you. Alternatively, you can surround an enemy with Mirage Blades, and once you let go of the ranged attack button, you can fire them and surrounding enemies up into the air. You can also hold a large sheet of Mirage Blades up into the air. Once they come down, they pretty much freeze enemies in place, and this is incredibly useful, especially if you want to charge up your Beowulf attacks. Overall, I'd say the Mirage Blades are pretty versatile, especially because they have no attack animation, so you can attack enemies with a Mirage Blade as well as another weapon at the same time. And the cost for the special moves is incredibly generous, as it is just 1 bar of Devil Trigger per attack. But you're probably wondering, what the hell does a Devil Trigger do? Well, in Virgil's case, I'll show you. This is Steve. Here's your Devil Trigger. Now you must master Steve in order to become a proper Virgil main. You can summon Steve whilst using the Devil Trigger button. While Steve is out, your attack and defense are slightly increased. What does Steve do exactly? Well, he just copies your button inputs. Steve can exclusively attack with the Yamato, so if you were to use the Yamato, he would do the exact same attacks you do. However, if you were to use a different weapon, he would do attacks based on what button inputs you press. So for example, if you were to do a kick 13 with the Beowulf, Steve would perform a Void Slash. Steve has 3 different speed levels. His basic level has a slight input delay to your attacks, the red level has a much longer delay, and the blue level is the one I personally use, and it's where he just doesn't have a delay. Steve is actually incredibly useful, as he can pretty much double the amount of damage you deal, which is insane, judging that Virgil already does incredibly high amounts of damage. But not only that, Steve uses the Yamato, so that means more judgment cuts. If you were to perform a perfect judgment cut while Steve is out, he will stop whatever action he is doing, teleport to your side, and then perform the perfect judgment cuts with you. This is incredibly good if you want to deal an incredible high amount of damage quickly, because Judgment Cut is, like I said, Virgil's best move, and just being able to double up on that is kind of insane. But how about we just triple up on that? Wouldn't that be cool? Well, that's where Virgil's Sin Devil Trigger comes in. Virgil's Sin Devil Trigger is activated after filling up the Sin Devil Trigger bar. You fill up this bar by consuming Devil Trigger bars. You can be in Sin Devil Trigger for around 15 seconds, I believe, which is, you know, a decent amount of time. However, a little cheeky pro tip from me, once you activate Sin Devil Trigger, the timer, doesn't start going down immediately. There's like a 3-second delay before it starts going down. So I personally like to use it in bursts, just to use, either the triple Judgment Cut, because yes, it multiplies your Judgment Cuts by 3 if, you know, Virgil wasn't broken enough. You could also pop it quickly if you want to get a unique finish to your combos, because when you're in Sin Devil Trigger, all of your Yamato and Beowulf combos will have an extra attack put on the end of them, and these attacks are incredibly powerful. I'm not going to go into everything the Sin Devil Trigger does, because it does also enhance some moves, such as adding extra kicks to the kick 13 for the Beowulf, or for when you're using Stinger with the Mirage Blade, he will carry the enemy across with him rather than just pushing them away. So, you know, it's kind of busted. Some of my personal favourite moves whilst you have Sin Devil Trigger is the overhead slash with the Yamato after performing the basic combo, and also the, he just pushes out his wings, it's really cool, for the Beowulf pause combo. And I just want to say, the fully charged up attack of the final part of the combo, it does so much damage, it's stupid. Also, whilst you are in Sin Devil Trigger, your attack and defense are greatly increased, you become incredibly hard to stagger, and you also heal very, very, very slowly. I'm pretty sure just to use your full Sin Devil Trigger, you get 2, maybe 3 bars of health, so you know, it's not the most incredible way of healing. That's where this move comes in. And this move actually involves spoilers for the story of DMC5, so if you don't want to get spoiled, I'm going to put a timestamp up on now, just skip to that. Personally, I think you should if you haven't experienced it. It's a pretty fun story, and yeah, just go ahead. Now the people that have skipped along. This move is called a World of V, where Virgil commits a violent act of self-harm and summons the inner emo within him, this emo being V. You can pop this just to clear out a big group of enemies, or just as, you know, your funny panic button. Whilst in this state, you cannot be damaged, so it's a pretty decent get out of jail free card, and your health and the amount of familiars V summons is completely dependent on your concentration gauge. The concentration gauge is filled up by looking at enemies, jumping around for some reason, and also landing attacks, but it is... Of course, it would be incredibly increased by landing perfect judgment cuts. The concentration gauge is reduced when you miss attacks, when you get hit, or when you activate. When your concentration reaches level 2, you get some pretty decent benefits. For example, the Yamato gains extra range, so you can attack enemies from further away. You can charge your attacks with the Beowulf up to 3 times to deal even more damage, and the Mirage Edge just adds more hits to your attacks. So obviously you're going to want to avoid taking damage to keep the benefits, so this is where Virgil's trick comes in. I don't know why it's called trick, because it's just a teleport. You can teleport from any direction, or you can do a special teleport to instantly teleport downwards if you're in the air, or teleport a good distance back. Perfectly dodging an enemy's attack with the trick will increase your concentration level by a good amount, so that's something to keep in mind of as well. You can also teleport straight towards enemies if they have been pierced with a Mirage blade, so this can help a lot with catching up to enemies if they are staggered or just in the air. The teleport is probably the most versatile thing of Virgil's kit, and might actually make him the most overpowered character, judging that it's so easy to avoid damage, because at least with Dante's Royal Guard you have to time it right, or you get a slight punishment, either getting hit or using up your Devil Trigger bars. Whereas with Virgil you literally just press a button and you don't even have to time it right. Yeah. Now, I've left his coolest moves until last on purpose because they are just so bloody cool. I don't even know what to call them. They're either finisher moves or super moves or whatever, but basically with every weapon you have to meet a requirement. You have to have your Sin Devil Trigger bar full, or you have to have your Sin Devil Trigger activated, and you need your concentration up to level 2 or higher. You then have to put in a specific button input, and depending on what weapon you have, you do a insanely overpowered move that just basically kills everything on the screen. For the Mirage Edge, you perform the Deep Stinger, where you charge up and then spin towards the enemy, impaling them and just carrying them along with you, and then you knock them back with one final sweep. It is very good against the Dante fight, actually, because it just kind of pins him in place and it's just free damage. With the Beowulf, you have Hell on Earth, where basically you just charge up a giant massive punch and then you slam the ground and you make a nuclear explosion, basically. It kills everything next to you. It does an incredible amount of damage, so if you want to spam it against bosses, like be my guest, you're playing Virgil. But yeah, it does stupid amounts of damage. You kill boss fights very, very quickly, and yeah, if you don't want to use skill, this is the move for you. And finally, with the Yamato, you don't even have to be familiar with the Devil May Cry franchise to know that this is going to be the move. This move, of course, being Judgment Cut End. Upon activating this move, you have to do like a couple second charge up, and then you move so quickly you can't see what Virgil's doing. He slashes through reality in pretty much the entire arena, and it locks every enemy in place. How you're going so fast that it looks like time has just stopped. Then you teleport back, and upon sheathing your sword, reality just shatters around you like glass, and this deals a heavy amount of damage to every enemy on the screen. I've said before, I know, but the move is just too cool. It's so iconic, and yeah, the fact that you can perform it, I would honestly be disappointed if you couldn't perform it. But it's another reason that makes Virgil overpowered. You just have these 3 moves that can just, finish any fight, just like that. But yeah, you just use any of these moves to either skip a fight you don't want to do, have a cool finish to your boss fights or just arena fights, and yeah, there's not really a lot of skill to go into it. You just kind of press some buttons and boom, stuff happens. Well, that's enough for me of gushing over one move for I don't know, what was it, 2 minutes now? Jesus. I think it would be quite important for me to compare Virgil's playstyle to the other characters. Of course, using food. Nero is more of a ham sandwich. He's pretty basic by himself, but you can kind of time it right to eat it to get the best out of it. However, you also have an array of condiments at your disposal to just change up how the playstyle is. V is like a spaghetti bolognese. It's pretty basic. It does the job. It can only do one thing really, and that's just to be a quick, easy meal. But have it too much, you're probably going to get bored of it. Dante's more of a souffle. You need to know how to make the souffle in order to eat the souffle. However, if you know how to make the souffle, you're damn well going to make the souffle, and you're probably going to feckin' enjoy it as well. Virgil, however, is more of a buried delight. You could either, just buy it from a restaurant, and have someone make it for you and do the easy work, or you can make it yourself. Learn how to make the little biscuit layer, and really master it to, you know, make it feel special to yourself. And I know none of that made any sense, but I just wanted an excuse to segue to his theme song, Bury the Light, which is probably the best song I've ever heard. Like, I'm just gonna play a sample clip for you now. Shit goes hard, I know, but yeah, this is another reason why I play Virgil. I know you know you can just swap it to any character, but you know I have raging autism. I physically cannot do that. Bury the Light also makes him feel a lot stronger than he actually does. I know that doesn't make any sense whatsoever because he's overpowered as shit, but the song's just that good in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much all the basics of everything about Virgil. If you want like actual in-depth guides, there's like a 10-minute video on how to use judgment cuts properly. I'd say go look at that. I might link it in the description if I can find it. But yeah, I hope you did all enjoy this. I know I haven't uploaded for a little bit, but it's because I've been working on this. And I probably should have made like a Wesker video or something, but what do you do? But yeah, that's going to be it from me. Thank you all for being patient, and if you watch this till the end, fucking good on you, mate. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, I guess I'll just see you in the next one. Toodles.
Rest in peace.